Behold the harmony of airwaves as you immerse yourself in the captivating frequencies of WMNHLP, the sonic heartbeat of Manchester, transcending through the ether at 95.3 megahertz frequency modulation. Our transmissions emanate from the zenith of 1000 Elm Street. Venture into the heart of our creative realm at 119 Canal Street, where innovation and sound collide. We bear the imprimatur of Manchester Public Television Service in the venerable city of Manchester, New Hampshire, USA. Enrich your auditory journey with the depth of our licensed resonance. Dispatch your missives to WMNH953@gmail.com or traverse the virtual corridors of WMNHradio.org. Engage with our sonic vibrations by communing with us through the digital channels. Your radio beckons, eager to enthrall you with its mesmerizing cadence and envelop you in a symphony of boundless auditory wonder. WMNH rips the knob off.
When you hit me on the head with your beer bottle.
Welcome back, everybody. This is Matt Connarton Unleashed. We are live from the studios of WMNH on this Saturday morning. You might be hearing Amnesia by John Pousette-Dart, and we have him, I believe, on the phone with us. John, is that you?
Hey, man, how are you doing?
Good, good. Welcome to the show. It's great to speak with you. I kind of went down the rabbit hole last night with your music. Obviously, I've always been aware of you, but it's been a long time since I listened to any of your, well, first of all, since any Pousette-Dart band. So that was fun,
right.
Kind of going back and listening to a lot of that stuff. And I also listened to some of your more recent solo material. And I have to say, I really, really love a lot of what you're doing. And I'm excited that you're coming to Manchester on the 13th to play at the Rex Theater.
Yeah, well, the Rex is a really nice room. We love coming back there.
Have you played there quite a bit over the years?
We have played, yes, we have. And it's kind of, it's gone through a couple of changes, and they've really fixed it up nice now. And it's just a really, really great listening room. I mean, people really, and the audiences are really good, and the whole staff who run it are really great folks. So it's excellent. We love coming there.
Outstanding. Now, are you doing? How big of a tour is this? Are you doing quite a few dates?
Yeah, this September we're jumping around quite a bit. All through September, it gets quiet down after September, but we're all over. We're doing, New Hampshire, Massachusetts, Maine. Connecticut, we're moving around quite a bit this month, so that's good. And it's myself and Jim Chapdelaine, who's I've been playing with now for 25 years, and we're doing. I've been really focusing on kind of coming back to the roots of the songs duo, which I really like, and it really brings in people close to the songs and the music. So we're really enjoying working, in this very kind of intimate environment. So it's really great. And Jim and I have been playing together for a long time. So we're very tight. It's like he's a brother,
Excellent. Now, Jim was not a member of Pousette-Dart band, correct?
Not the original band, no,
okay.
But he's been a member of the band for 25 years because the original band broke up quite a ways back. But Jim and I have been playing together now for over 25 years, and in the band when we were working with the band. But these days, we've been, as I mentioned, we're focusing more on just doing. I've been focusing on the acoustic aspect of it, just because I really enjoy it. And but Jim is well known. I mean, I don't know if you remember NRBQ but he plays with Al Anderson, who's like one of my favorite guitar players and songwriters.
Oh,
and so we've known each other for a long, long time, and he's just great. So.
Now, on this tour, is it just the two of you, or you're just doing it as a duo?
Yeah.
Okay. Now, you said, so you prefer that, is he playing with you the entire set?
Yeah. We do a duo. The whole show is duo.
Oh, very good.
So and allows me to kind of really open up and carry down the root of the songs, and we trade off. It's like it's very seamless how it's kind of worked out together. But it's just got a nice feel, and it brings the songs right to the root of where they are. So it's very, you really get the core of what it brings. And it also, I find, having done both, I enjoy the band, but when you're playing with the band, it kind of pushes it, it puts the audience a little further away from you. Whereas when you're acoustic in this setting, it really allows an intimacy, and it allows the audience to come up, really kind of get in close and bring the songs up in a very kind of warm way. So I really enjoy it.
Do you ever play with a full band at this point, or do you always do? I mean, since Pousette-Dart band broke up, how long was that band together? Not that long, right?
Well, we were together in the 70s and into the early 80s, and
okay.
The industry really kind of took a big shift at that point, and that's when we left Capitol, and we did a long tour and then disbanded after this very long tour across the country, and the whole nature of radio and record really went through a shift. It was kind of during the period when the disco and techno stuff really hit the country.
Yep.
And when we were with Capitol at that point, there was a band called The Knack that turned in My Sharona, and the labels really just changed their whole emphasis and direction. And so a lot of rosters really shifted around that period of time. And so it was kind of the end of an era. And it wasn't really until kind of the beginning of the 90s when the female artists kind of came back into the picture that I felt like kind of reconnecting. And it was because it was that whole era in the 80s was a kind of a bizarre period of time musically.
Yeah, that's interesting. A lot of people, when they go through that, I just know from interviewing people, when they go through something like that, where they've been on a major label and then, it kind of, like you said, there's a shift, right? And then they get kind of, at the end of it, they're kind of exhausted by it all, and they step away entirely. And it sounds like, so did you take a break? It sounds like you took a bit of a break after that.
Well, yeah, we did. I mean, there was a big shift in terms of the whole picture. In other words, we left Capitol, I left management, and at that point, I moved to a different area, and then I lived in Rockport at the end of the 70s.
Yeah.
And then I moved to New York and started doing, when the band broke up, and I started doing a lot of session work. And so I got involved with singing and doing a lot of session work in the city, which kind of kept me very active, but in a kind of a different vein. It was more revolving around television and different things that were, and writing for different venues rather than just record. And so I got really involved in that through the 80s.
Yeah.
Which was great because I worked with a ton of people, and I actually had a lot of different bands then. But they were different players. It was a different bunch of guys playing. It wasn't the original band, but the original band, all the original guys, Troy and Curtis and I are all in touch. Like we speak to each other regularly, and we're all still. Everybody's kind of gone off in different directions, as happens. Because really, when you're with a band like we were a family. I mean, it's like being married. It's like a marriage. And when the marriage breaks up, everybody kind of goes off in different directions. But we're still very, very close, and I love those guys dearly, and we stay very much in touch.
That's really good to hear because, as you know, so often that's not the outcome. Very, very often it's people don't talk to each other anymore. There's some sort of weird grudge between musicians who've been in a band together.
That wasn't the case. That wasn't the case with us because it was more just the business that changed. It wasn't interpersonal. It was more just, we had really worked hard, and we broke the top 40, and then it didn't, just for a number of reasons. There were a lot of decisions that were made that were kind of speculative that we weren't very happy about, the choice of singles and the directions that the labels, chose that kind of affected the whole picture. And so there was a little bit of disenfranchisement with the kind of what had happened with on that level, because the record business is such a wacky business. People have no idea how crazy the record business was back then.
Yeah.
And so it was like really a different animal,
Yeah. It's still pretty crazy in a lot of ways. We talk about it a lot on this program. But so when you got back in, so that was during the 90s when you started really kind of focusing on your solo career and playing out and all of that?
Yes. What happened is I was actually in New York, and we were playing the Lone Star with the New York band. I was playing with John McCurry and Chris Bishop and some really great session players. John McCurry is one of my favorite guitar players in New York, and he's been with Julian Lennon, Billy Joel, Paul. I mean, he's played with everybody, and he's and Cyndi Lauper. He did all of her early stuff, and he's a really good old friend. And he joined the band for a while, and we were very close. And I was playing the Lone Star. I was doing the Lone Star actually one night with the old Lone Star on 13th and 5th, which is a great room. And they run an ad, and there was a record guy in Nashville at that time with us. It's at that time there was a label called Asylum, and he was with Asylum Nashville. And he saw the ad, and he called me up in New York and said, "What are you doing in New York?" And he said, "Why don't you come down to Nashville?" And that's where we originally recorded the early records, all in Nashville.
Oh.
And he said, "Why don't you come down and I'll set you up with all, a whole bunch of great writers, and we'll let's see what we can put together." And so he basically contacted me out of the blue and set me up with all of the most wonderful writers in Nashville. And so I went down there and wrote for 2 weeks, and then recorded all that material. And that kind of brought me back into the Nashville fold. And so then I started working on solo things from there on. And that's where my original solos, a lot of the first solo things started getting off the ground.
Yeah.
And it was like, so it went full circle because we actually did our first records there in the early 70s at the old Quad, which was notorious. That's where Drift Away by Dobie Gray was cut. And all of the kind of legendary stuff from that era was cut down at the old Quad on Grand Avenue in Nashville.
So you probably
we went back there.
So you probably didn't have any trepidation, right? Because I know a lot of people, when they go to Nashville, people we've had on the show, they'll talk about how scary it is because that's like, that's high pressure, right? Sitting around writing songs with people in Nashville, Tennessee. But you had already recorded there with the band and everything. So for you, I assume it was pretty comfortable.
Yeah, well, we were very fortunate in that was the first place we went. When we first signed Capitol, they sent us to Nashville with Norbert Putnam. And Norbert Putnam and David Briggs and Kenny Buttrey, who we did the first records with, were the last Elvis Presley band.
Oh, wow.
So they were with Presley. So we were working with the Presley crew.
Wow.
Which was really amazing as a green kid to be in the studio with those guys because they were just phenomenal.
Yeah.
And so I was very lucky to bump into like some of the most veteran players at the very beginning. And we were in Quad, which was one of the studios, which had Dylan worked in, Joan Baez, Dobie Gray, Dan Fogelberg, you name it, Jesse Winchester. It was like that studio was the place.
Yeah.
And so it was we were very fortunate to really land in with a really good crew, and Norbert was an amazing musician and producer. So we were very, very fortunate to be in the good graces of some really wonderful people who, was a world-class education for me in every way.
Yeah, no doubt. Now, the set that you do now on tour, do you do a lot of the original material Pousette-Dart band, or is it, I imagine you mix in, because you've been prolific. You've recorded a lot, both with the band and since then as well.
Yes. So basically I make a point of really going back and honoring a lot of the early material through the early records, through the Capitol years, and then we move on through the newer things. So it's a real, it's quite a wide swath of material, that goes back to the beginning for the songs that people really like from that period, and then newer things. And also a couple of very discreet covers here. I try and pick songs that I really love to play by really great writers here and there. So it's a real wide array of things. And Jim we both cover a lot of ground guitar wise, and Jim is just an amazing musician. So, and we're very tight, and so it's we're very close with each other, and kind of there's a lot of really nice chemistry involved. So it's fun. It's just really fun.
Yeah. By the way, are you from here originally? Where are you from?
I'm actually from New York. I was born in New York and raised in New York, and I went to Boston when I first met. The reason how I wound up in Boston is my grandparents lived in Nantucket. Oh. And I used to go up there a bit. And when in the late 50s and early 60s, and one night I had a friend who got me to sit down and do an audition in front of John Hammond, who was playing the Chicken Box, a club out in Nantucket. And John asked me to stay on and play with him for 3 nights. And so I opened for John Hammond at the Chicken Box. And one night, Don Law, who was a promoter in Boston,
very familiar,
was there because he and John Hammond's father, Don Law's father and John Hammond's father were both talent scouts who had founded all kinds of, were legendary in the music business.
Yeah.
And Don saw the show and said, "What are you doing? Why don't you come to Boston?" And I went to Boston, and he started managing me, and that's how the band started.
That's a hell of a great start, I'll tell you. That's fantastic. That's an amazing start. And then, did you get signed to Capitol pretty quickly?
We actually did a lot of road work. Don really threw us out on the road, and I asked John Troy from California. I went to University of the Pacific in California. I asked him to come out and play bass, and he started playing bass as a duo. And then we found John Curtis through an ad in a music store, and we started playing trio. And Don really put us out on the college circuit, really in a huge amount of work. We started doing the NEC conferences and everywhere. We played all the colleges in New England.
Yeah.
And he really turned us into like a real road outfit really fast. He just had us on the road endlessly. And we got a reputation kind of, through just really hard work before we were ever signed. And then, we had a strong reputation going from road work. And then we started seeking out labels and towards the early mid 70s. And then, we went through the same thing that probably all bands went through. We were rejected by all kinds of people, one after another. So, it's a game of rejection with trying to find labels. And then finally there was a legendary record man named Al Corey, who was then the head of Capitol, and he was actually an old Boston guy, and he wanted to come to Boston, and he came to Boston, saw us, and signed us. And so we signed with Capitol, and then the rest was, a couple of weeks later, Dawn and I were out at the Brown Derby in Hollywood and Vine, and they were setting us up to go and start recording in Nashville with Norbert.
Oh wow, that's fantastic. That's a great start. How many records did you do for Capitol?
We did 4. There was an option on 5, and then the whole kind of industry. When at that time when we were making those records, we were really spending a lot of time and really, putting a lot of effort into the records. And we were spending, the budgets were really high. We used to make some pretty expensive records considering what was going on at that time. And what happened is the whole industry was very decadent at that point. That was when Fleetwood Mac turned in Tusk, and that was like during that era. And so the industry was really wild and crazy at that point. And then, as I mentioned, they signed the Knack, and the Knack turned in My Sharona for $10,000. And all the labels went, oh man, we're changing gears now. and they realized that they could get everybody to do these records for nothing.
Yeah.
And so they just clean sweep. All Warner and Capitol and a lot of labels just did a clean sweep of their rosters and just kind of, started all over again. So it was like a real rude awakening in a lot of ways at that period of time. And then also Saturday Night Fever came in from the Bee Gees, and the whole scene just kind of went, flipped like a 180 degree in terms of what was going on in terms of record and radio.
Yeah.
So it was a very eye-opening period of time to go through. That's for sure.
Yeah, but you had a great start, and of course that built the foundation for everything that you've been able to do since. And I said,
very much so. Yeah.
And I really like a lot of the new material that you're doing as well. We should remind people, of course, you're going to be at the Rex Theater on September 13th. And of course, for anyone who's never been there, it is a fantastic place. And this is just you, correct? There's no opener. It's just you and your partner. And
the last time we were in, it was just us. I don't recall that we had an opener last time.
Okay.
But the nice thing about it, there's really a really great audience there. I mean, the audience was fantastic the last couple of times we've been in there. I mean, it's a very enthusiastic and people really knew the songs, and so we love playing there. It's just a great room. Yeah, no,
that's excellent. That's excellent. And then, what are your plans for after this run of shows is done on this tour? Are you gonna do another album, or what? Do you know what your kind of long-term trajectory is?
You know what I've been doing is since I did a record. The last record I did for Sony Red, and I went back when I first went to Nashville. I told you we came on the tail end of the Drift Away sessions with Dovey Gray, and I walked in at the end of their cutting Drift Away, and the guys were still in the studio. And one of my heroes, Reggie Young, was one of my favorite guitar players, bar none. was there in the studio, and I kind of made a mental note at that time, which was this is the 70s, that I wanted to do a record with him so badly all these years. So, the clock turns, 30 years forward or so, and I made a mental note that I wanted to go back, and I met with a producer named Bill Vorndek, who passed subsequently since, but he was one of the legendary, absolutely amazing producers. He's done Alison Krauss and Bella Fleck and many of the greats, and Ralph Stanley. I mean, it's just a long list. But we got together and did a record, and we wanted to bring in the Muscle Shoals guys and Reggie Young. So I did a record with a lot of the Muscle Shoals guys, Reggie Young and the Memphis and the real top bench Nashville players, and turned in a record called Talk, which was, I think, the best record I've ever done.
Oh, wow.
That was the last record I did. And it was kind of quiet. Sony didn't do much. It was at the period of time when everything was changing from kind of the old record, the whole promo routine to social media. So it was a big switch. And since then, I've started wanting to put more effort in just putting singles out, so I don't spend so much time working on a whole record and just kind of putting things out immediately. Which you've probably noticed from the site is I put singles and videos out like one by one, so that they're immediately there, and I don't have to spend a lot of time waiting to accrue, the energy that you put into a record and the time it takes to get it out. And the attention spans are so much shorter now, and a lot of people don't even have, they don't even have CD players in their cars anymore. So it's coming through streaming. So I'm kind of addressing the medium has changed to a very much more immediate, format. So that's kind of the way I've been approaching it, is just putting out singles.
No, that makes sense. And it's something that we talk about a lot on the show with our guests, is that we live in a time where you have all these different options in terms of how you want to release music. You can do an album, you can do an EP, you can put out just singles. And some of our guests, they'll talk about putting out a series of singles that eventually they put together into an album. But it kind of the inversion of,
right.
Instead of putting out an album and then releasing singles, you release the singles and then it becomes an album. But I mean, talk about a big shift in the industry. Huh? That's a really big one.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. I mean, people really, people are just kind of getting things, with obviously, the advent of Spotify and Rhapsody and Pandora and Amazon and all the rest of it, that's really the way people are receiving most of what they're getting. And it's it's also very difficult because there's so much stuff coming through that you really have to kind of dig down to find a lot of the things, like there's tons of music that's just below the surface. It doesn't ever kind of come on to the surface. So it's, it takes some effort to find the things that you really love, but it's there. It's just, there's so much more being released now than ever before. So it's definitely an onslaught of media that people are being inundated with, no question.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. If you are just joining us, John Pousette-Dart is with us, and we've been talking about, he's got a show coming up on the 13th at the Rex Theater right here in Manchester. And John, we'll let you go in a moment, but I really appreciate your time this morning, and it's great to get to speak with you. And the Rex Theater is such a nice venue. Of course, if you're online, you can go to rextheater.org or palacetheater.org if you want to get tickets online, or call 603-668-5588. Yeah, absolutely. And you can see John Pousette-Dart. And I'm sorry, what's the name of the gentleman who plays with you again?
Jim Chapdelaine. And if people know Al Anderson is just a treasure, a musical, one of the great guitar players and singer-songwriters. And he plays also with Al, and Al is just a monster. He was a guitar player with NRBQ.
Oh.
And NRBQ, the original NRBQ was one of the greatest bands. They're up there with Little Feat and Bonnie Raitt, and some of my favorite bands, bar none. The original band. It's changed now, but Al was one of the original members, and he works with Al and myself, and so he's also, we have a lot of similar friends in Nashville and spread around. So he's just a wonderful musician, Jim Chapdelaine.
Okay, very cool, very cool. All right, well, John, we will let you go, but thank you so much. It is wonderful to speak with you today. Have a great show on Friday. I wish I could be there, but I'm actually on the air Friday nights, but I know it's going to be great, and we'll keep plugging it here and spreading the word. And thank you so much for joining us today.
Matt, it's wonderful talking to you, and thank you for having me. I greatly appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Anytime. All right, thanks, John. Take care.
Take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
All right, that was John Pousette-Dart, and we're going to play, to close out our conversation, I'm going to play this track, Amnesia. This is one of the hits from back in the days of the John the Pousette-Dart band. Boy, I do a radio show. Can you believe it? The Pousette-Dart band, this track, Amnesia. And I decided to play this one specifically for our friend Tony Petrello, who might be listening, because last night on Retro Spectrum Radio, we were talking about how John was going to be joining us this morning. And Tony had mentioned that he particularly loves this song, Amnesia. So let's give this a spin. Then we'll show some love to our amazing sponsors. And then our guest, we have a great guest coming in. And plus, we'll remind you about that show and the art show that Jenny is featured in as well. We'll talk about all of it. But here it is. This is Amnesia. This is from the Pousette-Dart band, John Pousette-Dart.
When you hit me on the head with your beer bottle, something in my chemistry to change. And though I've already decided to forgive you, my friends think I'm permanently deranged. When I wake up, try to put the pieces all together of all the loving times that we did have. I get static in my ears and a hazy picture, and I hear your voice inside begin to laugh. I hope that it's only amnesia. Believe me, I'm sick but not insane. Yeah, I hope that it's only amnesia. My friends, they don't look at me the same. Sometimes I feel okay, but when I talk, I stutter. I can't remember back a few minutes ago. The doctors all come up with the same answer. Boy, if I'm that far gone, there's nowhere left to go. I hope that it's only amnesia. Believe me, I'm sick but not insane. Yeah, I hope that it's only amnesia. My friends, they don't look at me the same. I hope that it's only amnesia. Believe me, I'm sick but not insane. Yes, I hope that it's only amnesia. My friends, they don't look at me the same. Yeah, I hope that it's only amnesia. Believe me, I'm sick but not insane. I hope that it's only amnesia. My friends, they don't look at me the same.
In times of crisis, you need a law firm that stands by your side. With over 40 years of experience, Craig and Getsoulis is dedicated to fighting for your rights. As former state prosecutors, our attorneys have the knowledge and trial experience to provide an aggressive defense against any charge, from DUIs to homicides. If you've been injured, our compassionate team will assess your case and fight for the compensation you deserve. Serving all of New Hampshire, Craig and Getsoulis is here when you need us most. Visit CraigGetZoulis.com or call 603-555-1234 for a free consultation. Craig and Getsoulis, your advocates, your allies.
Bring your kitchen to life with Queen City Cabinetry. Located at 87 Elm Street in the historic Sunbeam Mall in Manchester. Open Monday through Friday, 9 a.m. to 5:30 p.m. and Saturdays, 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. They can be reached at 603-222-2007 or on the web at queencitycabinetrynh.com. Come see the possibilities. Queen City Cabinetry, another proud sponsor of WMNH.
Diz's Cafe is the place to put a smile on your face. Judy and the crew will take care of you. Bring your appetite and treat your taste buds right. Diz's Cafe is always a winning choice. Breakfast, lunch, or supper. Diz's Cafe at 860 Elm Street in downtown Manchester. Dine in, take out, or make a reservation. Call 603-606-2532. Eat, drink, and be happy. Diz's Cafe.
When it comes to keeping WMNH on the air and your own personal or business computer needs, trust Groland Computers. Located on Elm Street in Manchester, Groland handles computer repair, virus removal, and custom-built systems. Are you looking for budget-friendly options? Check out our selection of fully inspected used computers. We offer tailored on-site solutions. No unnecessary expenses here. Visit Groland.com or call Groland Computers at 603-645-0101. Your tech, your way. Trust Groland Computers.
Midnight.
7 times out of 10, we listen to our music at night. Thus spawned the title of this program.
Late Night Delight with DJ Midas, right here on WMNH Manchester.
You wanna know why? Because I'm on the radio.
Saturdays and Sunday nights, midnight to 4 a.m.
This hour on WMNH is sponsored by CGI Business Solutions, located at 5 Dartmouth Drive in Auburn. They serve all your business needs, including employee benefits planning, corporate design and business administration, investments and wealth management, and customized business insurance solutions. Their phone number is 866-841-4600 or on the web at cgibusinesssolutions.com.
Behold the harmony of airwaves as you immerse yourself in the captivating frequencies of WMNHLP, the sonic heartbeat of Manchester, transcending through the ether at 95.3 megahertz frequency modulation. Our transmissions emanate from the zenith of 1000 Elm Street. Venture into the heart of our creative realm at 119 Canal Street, where innovation and sound collide. We bear the imprimatur of Manchester Public Television Service in the venerable city of Manchester, New Hampshire, USA. Enrich your auditory journey with the depth of our licensed resonance. Dispatch your missives to WMNH953@gmail.com or traverse the virtual corridors of WMNHradio.org. Engage with our sonic vibrations by communing with us through the digital channels. Your radio beckons, eager to enthrall you with its mesmerizing cadence and envelop you in a symphony of boundless auditory wonder.
WMNH, rip the knob off.
Welcome back, everybody. This is Matt Connarton Unleashed, and we are live from the studios of WMNH 95.3 FM in glorious Manchester, New Hampshire on Canal Street. Today is Saturday, September 7, 2024. We have a wonderful guest we're going to introduce in just a moment. I do want to thank again John Pousette-Dart for joining us this morning. That was a fun conversation. I really like talking with him, and he's going to be at the Rex Theater on Friday, September 13th at 7:30 p.m. So that's a beautiful venue if you've never been there. And of course, you can go to rextheater.org or palacetheater.org to get your tickets. An evening with the John Pousette-Dart duo is how they have it listed, and that's going to be really cool. So, like I said, I really like talking with him. And also, I mentioned, I made reference to it earlier. Jenny's artwork is being shown at the Mosaic Art Collective, another great place right here in Manchester on Hanover Street. And the reception is 1 week from today, Saturday the 14th from 4 to 8 p.m., 66 Hanover Street, Suite 201. That's a beautiful building if you haven't been in there, the Daily Mirror building. But you go in, you just go up to the second floor, and you can't miss it. The event is the Mosaic Art Collective proudly presents our annual Full Circle, the Speed of Light. That's the name of the venue. They are celebrating their birthday, 2 years now that they've been there. So opening reception and birthday celebration, Saturday, September 14th from 4 to 8 p.m. And Jenny and I will be going, of course, because her art is being shown there, and it's a wonderful place. So we'd probably go anyway, but the painting that was selected for the show, it's a personal favorite of mine. Really, really cool. So please join us for that as well. And if you are just joining us on Saturday morning, if you're listening live, of course, the studio line is open 603-250-6007, 603-250-6007. And of course, you can connect with us on social media, or you can go to mattconnerton.com/live. You can send an instant message to us through there. So there are many ways to interact with the show on this Saturday morning. But joining us now, live in studio, we have Teri Almquist from Wellness Hot Yoga. Welcome, Teri.
Hey, Matt, nice to be with you.
I've been very excited to get you on the show because, as I've been telling people, and I was telling Jenny about this, you've got a pretty fascinating backstory. And I want to get into all of that, but we should tell people up front too. So you're from Wellness Hot Yoga, which is in Haverhill.
Yep, Haverhill, Massachusetts.
And for our local listeners in Manchester, it's not far. You know, you say Massachusetts, people think, wait, that's in another state, but it's right over the border. So, I mean, to get here, what did it take you, a half hour?
Yeah, like 30 minutes, yeah.
Yeah, it's easy. You know, just a straight shot really on 93. So it's a wonderful place. And how long have you been there?
We've been in that location for 2 years. So
2 years.
We were in North Andover, started over there in 2008. I opened a yoga studio, and it was just yoga back then. And then, of course, COVID hit.
Yeah.
And like a lot of small businesses, it was devastating, and I ended up having to close that business and thought that I wasn't sure I was even going to reopen. And when I decided to reopen, my first thought was I was going to open a very small space and just teach, 1 or 2 classes a week, and that would be what I wanted to do. And then this space became available that had a beautiful locker rooms and a sauna already, and I saw the vision when I looked at the space of opening a wellness center. So more than just yoga, we're available for all these other modalities of healing. And that's really the reason I opened the studio in the first place, because I think that the body is self-healing and that we have lots of tools we can use, and the more tools we have available to us to be healthy, the better off we're going to be.
Yeah, absolutely. So when COVID hit, so there was a point where you didn't know if you were going to even continue.
There was a point where I knew I'd always teach yoga, but I didn't know if I wanted to reopen a studio or how that was going to work out. Mainly because, like a lot of small businesses, it was financially devastating.
Yeah.
And I've been very lucky that it's worked out that I've had people interested in investing in a way that allowed me to reopen.
Did you at any point, because a lot of people kind of took their businesses online in ways that at that time, in ways that they hadn't previously considered, including myself, because I'm a hypnotherapist, and I had always kind of resisted doing sessions with clients online. I don't know why. Looking back, I don't know why, because I've always been one to really embrace all the technology that's available, but I was late to the party on that. And I kind of, and then COVID, so terrible, but I always say we have to find those silver linings where we can. Right. And one of the silver linings is it kind of forced a lot of people, we interview a lot of musicians on the show, and they talk about it too, how it forces them to be more creative, or it did force them to be more creative and find ways to kind of work around, ways that they were used to creating music with other people and playing shows and whatnot. And so I found myself finally just sort of giving in and saying, okay, I guess I can see clients online. Turns out it works pretty well, and people are used to it anyway, especially with, different therapies. People use services like Doxy and, to do this, to interact. So it turned out to be a good thing, a positive thing, learning to do that. But in your case, and I have seen people who kind of do yoga classes online, but is that something you considered, or maybe you did implement some of that?
Yeah, we did. We were in a really interesting position, because not only do I own a yoga studio, I have been a yoga teacher for now in almost 20 years, but then, over a decade. And I've mentored teachers from all over the world. So I've written a book on teaching yoga for the style of yoga that I teach, which is called Bikram Yoga. I've written a book on teaching. I've mentored teachers. I've traveled around the world to do seminars and webinars. And one of the things I do is a monthly webinar.
Oh.
And I've done it on Zoom, and I've done that since about 2005. That's the wrong date. 2015.
Okay.
About 2015, I started doing these monthly webinars for teachers. So I already had all the Zoom stuff set up to do that. And then when the first day we were closed from the yoga studio, we had morning classes and closed, and our evening classes were online.
Yeah.
And what we did is, because my manager and I have been doing these Zoom things for ages, we actually put it out to my larger worldwide community and said, listen, you can figure out how to do this too, but let your students know that they can continue practicing with us, and we will help you set up your own stuff, and then they'll transition back to practicing with you, just to keep these businesses going. Of course, we all thought it was going to be, a couple weeks, or, right, when it started.
I remember that.
So our thought process was, we'll teach them classes online. It'll be fine. The style of yoga I teach, I don't actually have to do the class when I'm teaching it. I just stand and I kind of tell people the directions of how to do it.
Oh, okay.
So I was just leading through a home practice. And actually the first Saturday that we were open, my Saturday classes are always busy. I remember having like 4 screens of Zoom people. I had like 70-something people online from all over the world taking classes.
Wow.
And we continued that. We also expanded out to this more idea of also mental health wellness. So we did a lot of community events online.
Mm-hmm.
So we did game playing. One of the most fun things we figured out how to do is how to do scavenger hunts in your own house.
Yeah.
So we would say, like, find an item, and you would have to, do you have a Harry Potter book? And you run and you go get the book and you bring it back. Or, and that was fun. We had people from Australia and Europe, and I remember a woman from Hawaii. And we still have online classes. So all of our classes, even if people aren't local, all of our classes are audio streamed.
Yeah.
Through the studio. And people still practice online, because the sad thing that happened too during COVID is a lot of the studios that closed have never reopened.
Right.
And so those students don't have a place to practice anymore, but we've given them a place to practice with us. And we think of them not just as students online, but also part of our community.
Yeah.
So we try to include them in a lot of things that we do by enabling to join online with us.
Yeah. No, that's amazing. All right, so let's get to this, because so when you and I first met, you kind of told me your whole history of how you got here, and one of the things I noticed, and I think I even said this to you that day, it seems like people who, if you want to use the term healer, people who are healers, so many of us, we get to where we're able to help others because we started out needing, not just necessarily wanting, but really needing a way to help ourselves. That's how I got started as a hypnotherapist. Was, I started out, I needed to help myself. I had, tremendous social anxiety and a lot of things to overcome that I felt were holding me back. So I learned self-hypnosis, and then I started, and when friends would find out what I was doing, they would say, "Oh, can you hypnotize me?" Turned out I was good at it. Then I went and got certified, and now I do it professionally. That's kind of the Cliff Notes version of my story. But I'm interested in sharing your story, because yours is very emblematic of that too, where you started out needing to find solutions for yourself, and that put you on this path that you're still on today. So
absolutely. I tell people all the time, the reason I opened a yoga studio is because I honestly believe no one should live in pain.
Yeah.
And whether that pain is physical or spiritual, emotionally, that the body is self-healing. But so in the 90s, I worked in the mental health field, and I worked in a lot of locked psychiatric facilities.
Okay.
And in one of those facilities, unfortunately, I got injured. I had a client who was going off of medication and had become very psychotic.
Oh, wow.
Ended up pulling me over backwards and landing on top of me.
Okay.
And in the process of trying to get him off and sort of doing that, I thought I was absolutely fine after the incident. They kept saying, "Do you want to go to the emergency room?" I said, "No, I'm good." And the next morning when I woke up, I had really struggled to get out of bed.
Yeah.
That my legs didn't want to work. And I was a single mom with 2 young kids, which was very frightening.
Yeah.
So I go to the emergency room, and what had happened was 7 of the discs in my neck had herniated in the process. And so I was put in a neck brace, told wear this for a couple weeks, we'll do some physical therapy, you'll be fine. Unfortunately, my neck, like a lot of people when it healed very frozen. And that frozen neck, even after they took the neck brace off, I couldn't move. So there was physical therapy, and that didn't really help. And then I went to see some neurologists, and they suggested that I have surgery at some point to probably remove the disc from my neck and put a rod in my spine to hold basically to hold my head up. Over the course of several years, I was collapsing forward. But I had a wonderful neurologist at Mass General who said to me, go find anything else that you can do. Try chiropractic, try massage, try anything. And then when you can't lift your head up anymore, when you do that, we'll do the surgery. But put it off as long as possible, because there was a chance of being a quadriplegic. Any kind of massive surgery to your spine, especially your neck, can be problematic.
Yeah.
So he said, get your youngest out of school and then come talk to me again.
Yeah.
So my daughter was getting older, and I was at a place where I thought, oh, I'm going to have to do this surgery. I had lived with a headache for many, many years and unable to move. And so my sister said to me, come take this yoga class I'm taking. And I told her I've tried yoga, with the ability to move my head and stuff. Yoga's really hard. I can't do it. And she said, try this class with me. It's very different. So I went to the class. And at that time, I had been in pain for over a decade.
Oh, wow.
I was a pack-a-day smoker.
Yeah.
So people see me now and they think, I don't want to say I'm very zen, but I'm a yoga teacher. I try to live a healthy lifestyle, all of that. That was not where I started.
Yeah.
So,
can I just ask you to interject? When you talk about being in pain for over a decade, my God, what was it like? How severe?
You learn to function. People who live in chronic pain learn to function in chronic pain.
Yeah.
So I was working and functioning. I had trained to be a sign language interpreter and actually couldn't full-time do that job because it includes holding your arms up for long periods of time.
Yeah.
Which was not possible. So I got a job at a college that was teaching sign language interpreting, so I was able to still be in my field.
Yeah.
But not having to put that strain on my body.
But you were in chronic pain, right?
I was in chronic pain. I quite literally had a headache for 10 years.
Wow.
I remember I used to say to people I was trying everything, chiropractic and massage, and I always used to joke that if I could find someone who could get rid of my headache, I was going to give them $1 million. I didn't have $1 million. But acupuncture was something that I found that did help with the pain, which was really helpful. I've tried all these other modalities of healing.
Yeah.
And in the beginning, chiropractic wasn't helpful for me. Later on, as I got better, doing yoga, chiropractic has become an important part of what I do to keep myself well.
Yeah.
So sometimes you try something in a moment and it didn't work. That doesn't mean you shouldn't try it again, because it could work later. So my sister took me to this yoga class, and I remember going into my first class, and the teacher said, "You must be Kathy's sister." And I said, "How did you know?" And she said, "Because she told me you look like a turtle." My head had jutted so far forward because I couldn't really hold it up that I actually did sort of look like a turtle.
Yeah.
And she said, "Don't worry, I collect turtles." And all over her yoga studio were these little turtle statues.
Oh, really?
So I really went in there, like I said, as a pack-a-day smoker, drank a bottle of wine at night to try to get to sleep because I didn't want to take painkillers.
Yeah.
I was not in good physical shape. And it was a 90-minute hot class. And 10 minutes in, I thought, how do I get out of here and go have a cigarette?
Yeah.
But the teacher was great, and she had been teaching for a long time. And she's still teaching. Diane teaches at Yoga for You. She owns that studio down in Dedham, Mass. And we got to a posture where you had to roll forward and put your head down on the floor. And she said, "Put your head on the floor." And I said, "No." And she said, "Put your head on the floor." And I said, "No." She said, "Do you trust me?" And I said, "Yeah." She goes, "Put your head on the floor." I put my head on the floor, and we don't do any real inversions, but it's just rolling forward and touching the floor.
Yeah.
I felt something move in my neck that hadn't moved in all of those years.
Really?
And in that moment, I had that epiphany. And I think this happens to a lot of people who are in the wellness industry.
Yeah.
I had the epiphany that I was going to do this yoga for the rest of my life, and I was going to learn to teach this yoga.
Yeah.
And so I live in Haverhill. That studio was in West Roxbury, and I would go every day to yoga.
Yeah.
To try to heal my own body. And I progressively got much better. And a year later went to be a teacher.
Wow. When you said you felt something move in that moment, you felt something move like in a good way.
In a good way.
Like that's a relief?
And yeah, well, like something stretched. Nothing had moved in my neck. Everything was scarred. That's what had happened with the neck brace on.
Yeah.
Everything. And now I think they do less of that. When people have neck injuries, very rarely do you see people walking around with big collars anymore.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
But because I think they know now moving it, even a little, is better than making it immobile. What happened was I just froze. All of that scar tissue just froze up in my neck.
Wow.
And so that's what made me lose motion.
Okay.
But something stretched in the back of my neck that hadn't moved. And I'm talking about this was just a tiny movement. But I had that idea of this can fix it. This is going to fix it.
Yeah.
And so I just have to do this for the rest of my life. And I dedicated myself to going, still working at the college. And a year later, I left my job at the college and went off to teacher training, which at the time was in LA, and it was 9 weeks. I left my family for a full 9 weeks, and it's over 600 hours of training.
Oh, wow.
To be a hot yoga teacher in the style that I teach, the Bikram yoga.
Yeah.
And came back, and there was no studio in the area, still driving miles to teach and take yoga.
Yeah.
And then opened my studio in North Andover.
Wow.
Yeah.
So you said, to get to be, are you pain free now, or
I am pain free now. It was funny. I last month I didn't take as much yoga as I normally take.
Yeah.
And I said to somebody, boy, like my neck feels like a little clicky. If I go more than 4 days without a yoga class practicing, I can feel like but it's not pain. Like I can feel that it's still tight. So it's not a panacea. I didn't do a couple of yoga classes and don't need to ever go back for the rest of my life. I really honestly believe that I have to do this for the rest of my life to stay pain-free and mobile, and I'm okay with that.
Yeah.
And to be honest, I came back a week ago from being on vacation and not practicing for almost 10 days.
Oh.
And so my neck was really stiff and really like bugging me.
Yeah.
And then I've taken 4 classes in 4 days, and it was fine. It's back to where it was before.
Wow, that's
so
great.
It comes back, yeah.
And what about, so you mentioned too, while you were still in pain, so you were a pack-a-day smoker.
Yeah.
How did you quit?
That's 3 months of yoga, practicing almost every day. My first month I practiced yoga, I did over 30 classes in 30 days. So I was driving so far that I would stay at the studio and take 2 classes back to back.
Yeah.
What was really fascinating was people are very frightened of the idea of, especially if you live in pain, I think, 90 minutes in a hot yoga room doing yoga sounds so overwhelming. You think like, I need to start with maybe a 30-minute class or something. But the way this yoga is designed is so that you are slowly warming yourself up, and the heat helps.
Yeah.
And so what I discovered was if I did a 90-minute class, at the end of class, I started feeling like, oh, wait, I feel mobile enough now that I could actually do a class.
Yeah.
So I started staying and doing 2 classes back to back because the first class was just really all warming up for me. And then the second, the way the class is designed, the first it's a 90-minute class, so almost the first hour is what we consider the warm-up.
Yeah.
So and then you do yoga, which is done on the floor. So you spend all this time warming up slowly. So I would do a whole class as a warm-up, then do the warm-up of the next class, and then do the yoga, and that's what really changed everything, was to be able to, I'm not advising that everybody do 2 classes.
Sure.
But with a severe injury, that was the thing that worked for me.
Yeah.
And people, like I said, people are intimidated with this idea of a 90-minute yoga class in the heat. That's going to be really hard because I'm injured, I'm sick, I'm whatever.
Yeah.
But the way the class is designed, it's therapeutic. So you do the little bit that you can do, and then over time, as your body improves, you do more and more and more.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, so what
you asked about quitting smoking. So 3 months into the practice, I had taken a class, and then I took a second class. I used to go between, this is a terrible thing to admit, I used to go between the 2 classes, there's a break, I would go outside, have a cigarette.
No kidding.
Come back in and take the second class. I was quite literally at the end of 2 classes sucking wind.
Yeah.
Laying on the floor, struggling to catch my breath.
Yeah.
And I realized either I had to stop coming to yoga or I had to stop smoking.
Wow.
One of these 2 needed to go.
Yeah.
I smoked, it was my daughter's birthday, as a matter of fact. I smoked my last cigarette, drove home, smoked a cigarette on my ride home, never bought another pack of cigarettes.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it was fine. I made the yoga the replacement.
Yep.
The other thing I think too, that 3 months was enough time for me to start to emotionally love myself again.
Mm-hmm.
And when you love somebody, you don't want them to smoke. When you love somebody, you don't want them to do these things that aren't good for themselves.
Right.
I think that journey for a lot of people, and I've watched it over the last 20 years, watching the journey of people fall in love with themselves and stop doing those things that are harming themselves, and easily, not struggling to do it, making those habit changes
Yeah.
because they love who they are.
Yeah.
They love the way they feel. And so it makes it easy. So,
Yeah. Yeah, it's funny you're talking about like smoking between classes. It reminds me of I remember in high school, like going to the gym with friends to lift weights, and seeing people like not a lot, but every once in a while, you might see somebody they get done doing a set and then they go outside and they smoke a cigarette. And I remember talking with my friends and I about this and saying, to me that looks like it's like driving your car over a cliff, but deciding to put your seatbelt on right before you do it. It's like, you either care about your health or you don't. And, but you obviously got to a point where you had to make that choice. Right. And I think, unfortunately, for most people, it's not stark enough. I think, people, I see that's the number one thing that I see people for hypnosis is to quit smoking. And I think for most people, it's not a stark choice because they're not staring it in the face, the problem. Mm-hmm. You were staring it right in the face because you got to that point where I either got to do yoga, which is helping me tremendously, or I can keep smoking, but I can't do both. Whereas most people, it's like, okay, well, I'm doing this terrible thing. It's going to ruin my health eventually, but today I'm okay. Today I don't have lung cancer. Right. Today I don't have emphysema. Today I don't have heart disease that I know of. Right. As far as I know, today's fine. So I'll keep smoking. Right. And then tomorrow comes and it's like, and
it's also addictive. It's also that physical addiction to it as well. And I think being in the yoga room sweating. Yeah. And all of that.
Oh yeah.
Helped with me. I started playing, even before I quit, I started playing these games of, I'm going to wait till I would drive from the yoga studio. I wait till I get to this point before I have a cigarette. Mm-hmm. I'll wait till I get in my car in the morning instead of having a cigarette in the morning when I get up.
Yeah.
So I had started sort of playing these games to put off how much I was smoking.
Smart. Yeah.
But I hadn't really gone less than I was still a pack a day smoker.
Yeah.
And it was funny because I was somebody, I knew I was an addict. I knew I was an addict when I was quite young. I started smoking at 13.
Most people do that. That's probably average.
Yeah.
Just in my experience.
I always think if we could keep kids from smoking until after high school, then there were not going to be that many smokers because you have to get addicted young. Yep. And so it was an addiction for me, but it was also a mental addiction. So I started playing that game and started breaking that. But the sweating, the getting in there, doing something hard, and knowing that I could do something hard.
Yeah.
And that made it easier to quit smoking because in my head that was going to be hard.
Right.
And there's never really been a time. There's only once that I've had the urge to cigarette, which was in a stupid moment when my daughter actually had been diagnosed with cancer and it was her first treatment at the hospital. And I had stepped outside just to get some air and somebody was smoking and I thought, I'm standing outside a cancer center with a cigarette, but you know, it's that sort of it's still that somewhere in my head. It's still that crutch.
Sure.
You know, somewhere. So I don't think it ever goes away, but you have all these coping techniques, and that's what all the wellness stuff that I offer is. It's just tools. And even the book I wrote is called The Toolbox, Tools for Teaching Bikram Yoga. It's just tools you're putting in your toolbox. And I tell people, if you smoke, it's okay. Come to yoga anyway. The smoking doesn't get in the way of the yoga. The yoga might get in the way of your smoking.
Right, which is a good thing.
Which is a good thing.
Yeah.
But it's just another tool to put in your toolbox. So letting go of the blaming yourself and thinking, I can't, because I'm this, I can't be this. We are unique, each unique and open human beings that can be lots of things at once. We just have to open our mind to it. You can be a smoker and someone who does yoga.
Right.
And that's perfectly okay.
Well, the thing with smoking too is, and a lot of smokers in my experience don't like to hear this because it takes away some of the excuses, but it's the addiction part of it. Obviously the physical addiction is real. Nicotine is highly addictive, but the psychological addiction is what's really the big problem. Because the physical addiction works itself out of you in a relatively short period of time.
Oh, yeah.
Doing something like yoga where you're sweating out those toxins and everything. The physical addiction, if you can just get past that takes days.
Yeah.
That part of it, it's the psychological
that
addiction.
moment of wanting a cigarette was I probably hadn't smoked in 12 or 15 years. It
Yeah.
wasn't a physical addiction.
Exactly.
It was that.
It was just something in your brain.
It was
Yep.
something in your brain that
Yep.
went like, this is how we relieve stress. This
Yeah.
is how there's still that thing.
Yep.
But it's just it's that idea of in that moment of stress, also searching outside of yourself
Yes.
for the answer, as opposed to looking. And this must be some of the stuff you teach in hypnosis. When you have that anxiety, when you have that urge to smoke, you can't go outside yourself for the answer. It's not there. That's what all those